So next we have anxiety and dissociative disorders, fearing the world around us. Now, anxiety, the nervousness or agitation that we sometimes experience, often about something that is going to happen, is a natural part of life. We all feel anxious at times, maybe when we think about our upcoming visit to the dentist or the presentation we have to give to our class next week. Anxiety is an important and useful human emotion. It is associated with the activation of the sympathetic nervous system and the psychological, physiological, behavioral responses that help protect us from danger. But too much anxiety can be debilitating, and every year millions of people suffer from anxiety disorders, which are psychological disturbances marked by irrational fears, often of everyday objects and situations. Now, the generalized anxiety disorder. For a few months now, I have a really bad feeling inside me. The best way to describe it is like a really bad feeling of negative inevitability. Like something really bad is impending, but I don't know what. It's like I'm on a trial for murder, or I'm just waiting to be sent down for something. I have it all of the time, but it gets worse in waves that comes from nowhere with no apparent triggers. I used to get it before going out for night out with friends, and it's kinda stopped me from doing it, as I'd rather not go out and stress about the feeling, but now I have it all the time, so it doesn't really make a difference anymore. Chase, who said this, is probably suffering from the generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, a psychological disorder diagnosed in situations in which a person has been excessively worrying about money, health, work, family, life, or relationships for at least 6 months, even though he or she knows that the concerns are exaggerated, and when the anxiety causes significant stress and dysfunction. Now we hop on to panic disorder. Now, this is a paragraph by CJ. This person says that when I was about 30, I had my first panic attack. I was driving home, my three little girls were in their car seats in the back, and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I broke out into sweat, and my heart began racing and literally beating against my ribs. I thought I was going to die. I pulled off the road and put my head on the wheel. I remember songs playing on the CD for about 15 minutes and my kids' voices singing along. I was sure I'd never see them again, and then it passed. I slowly got back on the road and drove home. I had no idea what it was. So now CJ experienced a panic disorder, a psychological disorder, as I said, characterized by sudden attacks of anxiety and terror that have led to significant behavioral changes in the person's life. Sufferers are often anxious because they fear that they will have another attack. They focus their attention on the thoughts and images of their fears, become excessively sensitive to the cues that signal the possibility of threat. They may also become unsure of the source of their arousal, misattributing it to the situation that are not actually the cause. As a result, they may begin to avoid places where attacks have occurred in the past, such as driving, using an elevator, or being in public places. Panic disorder affects about 3% of the American population in a given year. So now what is a phobia? Now that we have learned what anxiety is, let's hop on to the term phobias. A phobia is from a Greek word is its literal meaning, that is phobos, which means fear. It is a specific fear of a certain object, situation, or activity. The fear experience can range from a sense of unease to a full-blown panic attack. Most people learn to live with their phobias, but for others, the fear can be so debilitating that they go to extremes to avoid the fearful situation. A sufferer of arachnophobia, fear of spiders, for example, may refuse to enter a room until it has been checked thoroughly for spiders, or may refuse to vacation in the countryside because spiders may be there. Phobias are characterized by the specificity and their irrationality. A person with acrophobia, fear of height, could fearlessly sail around the world on a sailboat with no concerns, yet refuse to go out on the balcony on the 5th floor of a building. The common phobia is social phobia, extreme shyness around people or discomfort in social situations. Now, social phobia may be specific to a certain event, such as speaking in public or using a public restroom, or it can be more generalized anxiety towards almost all people outside of a public, such as sweating profusely, blushing, stuttering, nausea, and dizziness. Now, obsessive compulsive disorders, like we talked, OCD. I have got this obsessive compulsive disorder where I have to have everything in a straight line or everything has to be in pairs. I'll put my Pepsi cans in the fridge, and if there is too many, then I'll put it in another cupboard somewhere. I've got that problem. I'll go in a hotel room before I can relax. I have to move all the leaflets, all the books, and put them in the drawer. Everything has to be perfect, as said by Dolan in 2006. So now David Beckham's experience with obsessive behavior is not usual. We all get a little obsessive at times. We may continuously replay a favorite song in our heads, worry about getting the right outfit for an upcoming party, or find ourselves analyzing a series of numbers that seem to have a certain pattern, and our everyday compulsions can be useful. Going back inside the house once more to be sure if we really turned off the sink faucet, and checking the mirror a couple of times to be sure that our hair is combed, and are not necessarily bad ideas. OCD is a psychological disorder that is diagnosed when an individual continuously experiences distressing or frightening thoughts and engages in obsessions, repetitive thoughts, or compulsions, repetitive behaviors in an attempt to calm these thoughts. Now, what is post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD? People who have suffered or survived a terrible ordeal such as a combat, torture, sexual assault, imprisonment, abuse, natural disasters, or the death of someone close to them, they may develop a post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The anxiety may begin months or even years after the event. People with PTSD experience high level of anxiety along with the re-experiencing the trauma, flashbacks, and a strong desire to avoid any reminders of the event. They may lose interest in things they used to enjoy, startle easily, having difficulty feeling affection, and may experience terror, rage, depression, or insomnia. The symptoms may be felt especially when approaching the area where the event took place or when the anniversary of that event is near. PTSD affects about 5 million Americans, including victims of the 9/11 terrorist attack, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and Hurricane Katrina. 16% of Iraq War's veterans, for example, reported experiencing symptoms of PTSD. So, PTSD is a frequent outcome of childhood or adult sexual abuse, a disorder that has its own diagnostics and statistical manual of mental disorders DSM diagnosis.